Hi, Darcel.
Hi, Cecile. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. And my eyes lit up because I see Rishi in the room. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I,
Well, actually, Shara will be here, but she is celebrating her birthday dinner tonight, so um, she will be here a little bit later. And yeah, as Rishi wakes up a little bit, he hasn't slept all night, and
oh,
should, yeah, and people might be wondering why we're still having this Tesla room when we had a room last week. Actually, we're going to have another Tesla room next week because we are taking it in different dimensions. And I would just like to mention, as we try to ping more people in and Rishi takes, some kind of breathe a little bit. Um, Today's room is Rishi's Tesla room, and I will dedicate this to him because he hasn't slept all night, but he's so professional in showing up today, and he's read up so much and is prepared to give us his divulgation. But in the meantime, while we ping people in, may I request dear Darcel to please play some music for us as
yes,
usual. Thank
ye-
you.
yes, I will. And Rishi, you're definitely taking one for the team. Thank you, bro.
My pleasure entirely.
I've got some internet issues today, but Cecile, the mic is all yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Darcel. Thank you for being always here and opening and closing the room with us. So I would just like to make an introduction to the opening of the room, and after this, as I said, I give all the floor to Rishi. This is his room today, and yeah, I'm very glad to have him here. So I would just like to say that as an introduction that there's so much to talk about Tesla, and in fact, in advance, I would like to say next week Hansen will be talking about Tesla and his work on a different perspective on the in terms of physics and science, because I think as he read on, he made some new thought processing about how Tesla was doing his work. So it will be a very interesting room next week, and of course, not to be outdone, Rishi is always very dynamic about his divulgations in the rooms that he made here in quantum photonics, that we always look forward to the rooms that he's leading. So it is believed that Tesla was granted around 300 patents worldwide for his inventions during his lifetime. While several of his patents remain unaccounted for or archived, he holds at least 278 known patents in 26 countries, mostly in the US, Britain, and Canada. Tesla never attempted to patent many of his inventions and ideas. Today, Tesla's legacy can be seen in multiple forms of popular culture, including movies, TV, video games, and several genres of science fiction. For example, in the 2006 movie The Prestige, David Bowie portrays Tesla developing an amazing electro-replicating device for a magician. In Disney's 2015 film Tomorrowland, A World Beyond, Tesla helps Thomas Edison, Gustav Eiffel, and Jules Verne discover a better future in an alternate dimension. In the 2019 film The Current War, Tesla, played by Nicholas Hoult, squares off with Thomas Edison, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, in a history-based depiction of the War of the Currents. In 1917, Tesla was awarded the Edison Medal, the most coveted electrical prize in the U.S., and in 1975, Tesla was inducted to the Inventors Hall of Fame. In 1983, the United States Postal Service issued a commemorative stamp honoring Tesla. Most recently, in 2003, a group of investors headed by engineer and futurist Elon Musk founded Tesla Motors, a company dedicated to producing the first car fittingly powered totally by Tesla's obsession, which is electricity. And as you know, in Palo Alto, you would see um, Tesla's statue with the time capsule in it and also with Wi-Fi. So yeah, as we try to talk about Tesla today, Rishi will be opening our room with his divulgation on Tesla. So Mike, to you, Rishi.
Just give me 10 seconds, please. I'll be right back. One sec.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, while people are here, later on, after Rishi's opening statement, we will also be opening the floor to people who would like to come up and share anything that they would like to say about Tesla. We feel that, in the last week that we had MJ here and also Hansen and Rishi as well and myself. And we were prepared at that time to talk about Tesla in our different perspectives because we have different backgrounds. And as you know, we really made an overtime for that room. And yeah, time wasn't simply enough to talk about Tesla, that we are taking this divulgation piece by piece. And also, yeah, for those who missed the room last time, so yeah, we are here to be of service to you. So, Rishi, just let me know if you are already prepared. And yeah, I welcome Shara here, who is celebrating her birthday also today because, she's on a different time zone. So, yeah, um, maybe she could not speak because she's out, but I would like to welcome her to the stage. So, Rishi, whenever you're ready, just let me know.
I'm ready. Happy birthday, Sarah. Shall I start?
Let's go for it.
All right. Okay. Welcome, everyone. We're here to talk about one of my favorite scientists, Nikola Tesla, and for many reasons. Some scientists were more, um, you could say, fabulous and more popular, and they did many things to be liked in the public eye. For example, um, Richard P. Feynman was a great teacher, and that really his ability to simplify things and explain it to people made him very popular among physicists and people who like physics. But Nikola Tesla wasn't a man of much charisma, at least earlier on. I mean, by all accounts, in his very early days, he was a man of a lot of charisma. He was 6'2" and pale and thin and often very handsome to women, attractive to women. And he got a lot of offers, although he died very alone, which is quite sad. He spent most of his life um, shut away from society so that he could focus on his work. He was a workaholic that would say. at work, and then go back to sleep and come back to work again. And I'm going to talk about how his life slowly changed from his early childhood to some of the things that influenced him later on in life, and some of the things that make him very peculiarly Nikola Tesla and no one else. For example, he was a germaphobe and he always wore gloves, and was very afraid of germs because he got cholera as a kid. Cholera. So from the beginning, then he was Serbian born to parents that were quite religious, and very early on, although he was a sickly child, he was quite gifted, and he was sent to a good public school and then later on he went to university as well, but he dropped out. Um, and his engineering degree was not something that fully satisfied him. He went out and wanted to figure out more than what they taught him at in college. What else could he do? And as he as he matured, he showed a remarkable imagination, and he was very creative. He was also very poetic, but he also had an eidetic memory, or a perfect memory. He could remember things just by looking at it once. Um, and so while he studied at university at Graz in Austria, and also at the University of Prague, he was introduced to a device known as the Gram Dynamo, GRAMME Dynamo, which operates as a generator, but when you reverse the circuit, it also becomes a motor, which is not universally true, but quite interesting. It's a completely reversible machine. So if you put electricity, you're going to make a motor. If you put rotational power, you're going to make an electric dynamo. So this was the first way to, because he saw this device, he conceived of a way to use alternating current to advantage. And he first visualized the principle in Budapest by thinking of a rotating magnetic field, and he developed plans for an induction motor, which is a way of driving a motor using magnetic field strength. And so that would become the first step towards successfully utilizing alternating current. In 1882, he went to work for the Edison Company, the Continental Edison Company in Paris, and he worked very hard there. Was very impressed. Although Edison always had a thing against him and a sort of grudge. Um, Maybe it was jealousy for his achievements. For whatever reason, Edison and Tesla did not get along very well. Although for the first year or so of his career, Tesla worked with Edison. In 1883, while on assignment in Strasbourg, he constructed after work hours on his own time his first induction motor, and then he sailed for America in 1884 with 4 cents in his pocket and a few poems and calculations for a flying machine. Get this, a flying machine. And he first found employment with Edison, but they were very but maybe for the next 5 years they worked together with um, with Tesla working underneath Edison. And there are many stories about the fights that they had and money that was owed. For example, Edison put out a challenge saying that I need this problem solved. I think it was something related to brushless motors, and he said I'd give $25,000 to anyone who could solve it. And even though Tesla solved the problem, Edison refused to honor his promise. But more on that later. So So in May 1888, George Westinghouse of the Westinghouse Electric Company bought the patent rights to Tesla's system of alternating currents and dynamos and motors. But this was a huge decision because this was economically going against Edison. And Westinghouse was quite rich, but this was still a huge risk for him. Somehow he took that risk on Tesla and decided to patent all of his works, bought the patents, and wanted us. And there was started a titanic power struggle between Edison's DC current and Tesla's alternating current approach. And now, of course, we use alternating current, but for a very long time, Edison uses significant economic power and to suppress AC. For example, when the time came to come up with a new means of execution, Edison pushed for the electric chair, not a very humane, very inhumane method of execution, but just because it would demonstrate the danger of AC, as that's what he wanted to propagate, right? This image of AC being dangerous. And so he made electric vehicles, electric chairs. He recommended electric chairs to be the next modern approach for execution. So once Tesla raised money from Westinghouse, he established his own laboratory Unlike in Edison's lab, he was working on specific problems, trying to fix and advance DC motors and things like that. Here he had his own lab. He did whatever he wanted. He experimented with shadow graphs, which were the precursors of X-rays, which came 8 years later. And he had countless experiments. He's made a carbon button lamp. He's discovered and worked on the powers of electrical resonance, so how you can make two things resonate at a distance, and all the various types of lightning he's described. And one very interesting thing about Tesla is that even though the science is often quite obscure, he was and it makes people afraid, right? When they don't know what they're looking at, we fear the unknown. So in order to placate people, especially after Edison's hate speech about how bad AC is, Tesla gave exhibitions in his laboratory in which he lit lamps by allowing electricity to flow through his body. He said, AC is so safe, I will let it flow through my body and light up this lamp at a distance. And that was one of the amazing things about Tesla. He was a creative genius who could visualize anything, and he often said, if I spend time, I visualize something, I'm going to come up with it for sure in my head, and then I will translate it into the real world, and usually there will be no flaws because I've thought it out so well. That's how good his spatial reasoning and just his eidetic memory and so many other things. His brain was wonderful, and he often gave demonstrations, and there was the World Columbian Exposition in Chicago, which was a very huge world expo. These are like huge science fairs that used to happen in the 1800s, where people from all over the different countries would come and show off their latest inventions and commercially available technology, so that they would spread around. And Westinghouse used Tesla's AC current system to light the entire World Exposition at Chicago, and which is why because that project went well, they got a project to do power machinery at the Niagara Falls to absorb energy, to harvest energy from the Niagara Falls. But that was a major milestone in his life, where the first project that was commercially successful and powered up the entire you could say like a giant fair, like a circus. It's a lot of power. He also in 1898 he announced the invention of a tele-automatic boat, which means like a remote controlled boat. And there was a lot of skepticism, but he went in front of a crowd in Madison Square Garden and demonstrated it. Uh, so don't pull out on don't ask Tesla to prove himself, because he will. Um, but very interestingly, in the later parts of his life, from May 1899 to early 1900s, Tesla made a very important discovery: stationary terrestrial waves. He discovered that the Earth could be used as a conductor and made to resonate at a certain electrical frequency. And so he moved to Colorado Springs, where the air was supposed to be more sparse and therefore more likely to carry an electrical charge, less. I believe the word is higher permittivity, less resistance, or whatever. So in Colorado Springs, and he lit lamps from without wires from a distance of 40 kilometers away or 25 miles away. So I think today, just to put that into perspective, even today we don't do wireless charging past a few feet, maybe even less than a feet if possible. That's our idea of wireless charging. But he was demonstrating that you could power up a bulb many kilometers away. Of course, this might be not be a steady power supply, but it's demonstrated, right? So his theory of terrestrial geostationary waves. Um, I'll get to scalar waves and maybe some of that, but anyway, so a little more about the history. And so now this was his successes, right? He's successfully done his experiments. He has some things to prove, and around this time he's come up with the Tesla coils and some very nice demonstrations. People are gathering respect for AC now, but of course Edison is still ruling the economy and he's totally shoved Tesla out. But in 1900, on Long Island, Tesla began construction of a wireless world broadcasting tower after taking money from J.P. Morgan, the OG American banker. And $150,000 was the capital he took, and he gave 51% of his patent rights for telephony and telegraphy, which I think eventually Alexander Graham Bell would secure many of the rights for. Of course, Alexander Graham Bell is considered to be the father of the telephone, but Tesla had more patents than him with relation to telephony. So Morgan thought that Tesla would take this money and provide worldwide communication and furnish facilities for sending pictures, weather reports, whatnot. But there was a lot of financial troubles and labor troubles, and Morgan also withdrew his support, because there was a point when he went to visit Tesla and he asked him, "Okay, tell me what this even is." Because I mean, he put money without knowing, right? It's Tesla, and Tesla's the guy, and he knows what he's doing, so just put money and hope it works. But he was expecting a communication system. But when he went there and he asked him, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm building a system that could send wireless power worldwide for free, and literally wireless transmission of power wherever you are in the world across distances. And this would allow free energy for all." And JP Morgan, being one of the bankers that are heavily invested in the emerging technologies of AC delivery and power stations and the entire infrastructure that they use to bill us for our electricity today, of course, he was one of the foremost bankers who was very heavily invested in that, and he didn't want to see that happen, so he pulled funding. I mean, and besides, maybe it wasn't just that it was against his interest. Maybe he just thought Tesla was mad, because free electricity for everyone in the world, no matter where you are, that's quite a claim to make. I'm sorry. Should I pause for a minute? Okay. Okay, and so yeah, Tesla's work also shifted to turbines and other projects, because he had a success at Niagara Falls and he needed to work on something called practical after the failure of the tower. But because of a lack of funds, his ideas remained in so many notebooks. And in 1915, he was severely disappointed that he and Edison were to share the Nobel Prize. That report was a fake, and he and Edison did not share the Nobel Prize. And he received the Edison Medal in 1917, the highest honor that the American Institute of Electrical Engineers could bestow. But I think that's kind of empty, since his biggest rival was Edison. So it would have been nicer if he got the Nobel, but okay. And he had a few close friends, and Mark Twain and a few other writers were quite foremost among them. But he was very impractical in financial matters, as you could tell by the fact that he's broke and running after investors very late into his life, even though he had so many patents. And he was eccentric, and he was quite a germaphobe. He was very scared of after getting cholera as a kid. And but he had a very inventive talent, inventive imagination, and he always figure out a way to prove his hypotheses, right? It's not enough to know what the answer is. You need to be able to communicate to people so that they understand why it's relevant. And Tesla was great at that. There's many examples of the prototypes he put together for his investors. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Tesla coil. That's so fun, right? And so, yeah, as a short introduction, this is all about Nikola Tesla and his life. And maybe I'll just hand the mic back to Cecile and see where we want to go with this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rishi. Yeah, if we would like to invite people to come up the stage, and if there are questions, please ask questions or share whatever you want to share about Tesla, or Rishi, if you want to add more later, that's fine too. So the first thing that comes to my mind for now is that trying to look at the life of Tesla um, in my readings is maybe personally, I think I have learned a lesson from Tesla also, because he was so very generous with the inventions or the ideas that he has, that a lot of people had copied it. And in fact, I don't know how you try to relate to it, but in my case, I'm also like that. But we think that we have so much ideas that it would just be okay for other people to copy it anyway. It's easy to come up with a new idea. However, I think he needed some kind of good manager who is able to look at to manage him at the point of view on the business side, because some of his ideas were really world changing and are valuable. And because maybe he thinks so fast, he would need someone or some assistants to work on his side to look at the business side, and to look at on how he will organize the dynamics in the way he tries to do his creations. So yeah, that is my share for now. How about the other people? Maybe they would like to say something. For those who are here on stage, and I see Neal here, and Karla, and Eric, and Rishi. Yeah, you can just continue later on if you want to. Just feel free. This is just a relaxed discussion that we have.
Karla, did you want to go first? I know you came up here first.
Um, I just was really interested in the terrestrial stationary waves, and I mean, I know asking the question, how did he get there, is probably not available, but if there is some understanding of like how he came to find those terrestrial waves, I'd be glad to know.
Well, so I would say, okay, I have a story. I don't know how far it's true, and but so there was, he was a very spiritual man, and when chasing after, like, in his deep loneliness, when chasing after some meaning to his life, and quite nihilistic by the end of it, but he found some solace in what the teachings of some Eastern philosophies, descriptions of how all of life in nature is comes from a life force, and that spread through the sky or the akasha, and there's this ether, right? So these stories of these kinds of things inspired him, and then he went to thinking about, okay, what if there was like larger consciousness, or what if you considered the earth to be more of a living thing, and and then he said, okay, what signals or what kind of effects can you think of when the earth is more of a living biome? And of course, I'm just totally grasping at straws at why he came to this conclusion, but eventually he started thinking, okay, maybe there's a way that maybe I can see the entire earth as a single conductor, right? It's one big conductor, and the thing is that no matter how big the conductor, big or small, there's a resonant frequency which is sort of like the average stable state, right? An object might be made of many complex composite parts, but the average of its composition gives you this sort of there's a vibration that best attunes to that average, and that's known as the resonant frequency of that object. So Nicola's theory was that the Earth is a conductor, and therefore there is a particular electrical resonant frequency which would allow the earth itself to vibrate and carry forward that signal or that resonance or that energy to a further away place. And of course he demonstrated this 40 kilometers away, lighting up light bulbs in Colorado Springs. But I think we were having a discussion about this in the last room. I'm very sure I don't understand the science of it, although Neal had some pretty good descriptions. So maybe Neal, if you'd like to take a crack at that. I'm a little lost here. But from what I understood, just to recap what I understood, just consider like points of least resistance, right? Electricity and energy is always going to follow the path of least resistance, and the Earth is a very good conductor, but the air is not. It's not a very good conductor. So you would consider that the shortest path between two distant points on a sphere would not be the path along the surface, because that would be a much longer line, but possibly a line straight through, like through the earth crust, connecting the two with a is it called a chord or a diameter? But anyway, so yeah, there's a shorter path that goes through the earth. Parts of his, as I understand it, that's not exactly the explanation. It's something of a standing wave, which means that there are 2 points which act as fixed ends of a vibration, and the vibration travels between the two, harmonizing and oscillating with itself, a standing wave. And the theory is that that's either passing along the surface of the earth or through the surface of the earth. We're not sure how he envisioned it, and we're still working on the physics of it, which was why we're planning to do a part 3 to answer this question more in depth. But yeah, anyone else, please feel free to chip in.
Oh, I guess the second part of that was, did he relate this to sound waves, or what were his thoughts and perspectives on sound waves?
So it's an electrical resonance. We do have standing waves for sound waves. That's quite common. Every time we play a wind instrument like a flute, we take advantage of the standing wave that's created in the wind column of a fixed length. But this is electrical resonances. So if you have a frequency a wave, an electromotive force that has a certain frequency of hertz. And so basically it's going plus minus at a certain frequency, right? And that frequency of plus minus, depending on the material, different materials have different resonant frequencies. There's a very cool science behind how possibly uh, we can identify anything by throwing a sound at it and seeing how it resonates. Like if you took 20 different gemstones, I could take a speaker and keep changing the frequency until it resonated with a particular crystal, and I'd be able to tell you which crystal that was. Because a crystal of a particular makeup has a very specific, very predictable resonant frequency. And so the theory is that you have 2 points on the earth which he puts giant poles on them, like steel poles that electrically resonate at a particular frequency. And because they're both the same frequency, they begin to sort of align with each other and resonate with each other, giving a bit of a feedback loop, making each signal stronger to each other, and therefore able to transmit a signal or power from one tower to the other. I hope that was okay.
Yeah, I would just like
Awesome.
to mention, Rishi and Carla, that next week Hansen will be explaining more of that, and that we have a regular Sunday room at around 5 p.m. PDT, which had talked for months now about waves, sound waves, light waves, all kinds of waves. And yeah, if we need more explanations than that, I shall invite Kay because he talks about the basics of this. So I think, yeah, there it is supposed to be taken up in detail because, for example, even in superfluids like helium, the waves that are being made are quite different, and in a low frequency there will be sound waves because there is some form of vibration. So, but there is also a way I would like to say, that a lot of people are also using the Tesla point of view about this in trying to explain. Well, for now, pseudoscience. You know what pseudoscience is? Pseudoscience is trying to get the platform of science in order to make their point, a little more credible. But yeah, maybe we should look at it at an objective point of view also. So maybe Hansen can explain it, and I don't know if Neal would be able to speak. Maybe he could explain it also. But we had several rooms on this and how we would be able to explain the waves and, yeah, light, photons, and electromagnetism. So maybe it's better if Hansen or Kay would explain this and, bring it to another level and address the questions well.
I see. So you guys have a room on Sundays about waves, and Sunday I work. So I won't be able to attend,
Sorry.
unfortunately. Thank you, though.
Fortunately, they have no recordings in the rooms of K, but probably one day, I mean, I would like to do a room with recordings on that so that people can use it as a reference. We actually do, K actually does, make mathematical and physics drawings in that room because he has an app that uses like a whiteboard that a person can see in Clubhouse. So it's quite a terrific room. But yeah, let's make a room which is, on another day. For that, I will request Kay to do that as well. So yeah, Rishi and Carla, yeah, if you have more comments, please feel free to speak.
Yeah, let's just go around the room, maybe see if Neil or Eric or Michael have anything they'd like to add or ask.
Yeah, I do actually. I'll put a question in the questions chat part, and the question is pretty much along the lines of reference free energy for the world. Would you say that this is not why would you say this has not happened on a local scale yet? And if it is possible, would anyone, yourself included, fancy collaborating to make that happen as an example?
Okay, I'm gonna be scientific, and I'm also gonna give you the conspiracy theory. All right, so both sides of it. So it's not very well accepted in science, but I have a belief, and Tesla believe this is true as well, that there is something called a scalar wave, which is different from a longitudinal wave. In that it's the word that's most easily researchable is 0 point energy. the belief that within a single point in vacuum, there is enough energy to power the entire solar system. There's so much energy within what we think is empty. And that this energy can, of course, be transmitted in the form of waves. And because these are scalar waves, these have been compared to neutrinos because they barely interact with the Earth. So you could have billions of them passing through the Earth, just like neutrinos, and we wouldn't be able to feel their passing. And so this is so. Is it possible to theoretically produce enough energy from this that we don't have any energy issues? Yes, it is. It's theoretically possible. Are we anywhere close to a practical implementation of this? No. And part of the conspiracy theory is why. It's because we had these huge lobbies, like Edison was fighting against Tesla. History teaches us a lesson. The oil lobbies have been fighting against electric vehicles for a long time. We could have had them many years ago. Research was stalled, production was stalled because it's competition for the oil barrel. So that's my conspiracy little theory in there. But maybe, just maybe, it might be possible to leverage technologies that can create energy and almost free energy. And if Tesla had his way, I mean, the problem of creating it is aside, Tesla had a way of distributing it, right? If you have energy, you can distribute it using the towers that Tesla invented. And we're not sure. Science is not 100% in agreement with Tesla. In fact, they're not in agreement that that would have been possible. We're still trying to figure out how would he have sent power across reliably, right? But I think he had something there, and he should have been allowed to have enough funding to have his way.
My understanding of it, that I think he wanted to use the ionosphere to conduct and store power, I think, and then there was the idea was that the ground was going to be the ground and the ionosphere was going to be the sort of the anode, essentially. I think that was what the plan was, I think, I understand. However, I mean, on answering the question regarding how much energy there is in a very small space of matter, I think I did a bit of research on this when I was a kid. I think I came to the conclusion it's quite a simple one using E equals MC squared, actually. And I think in half a kilogram of mass, which, a cup of water, or whatever it is, or 0.4, I think, 0.3, or whatever I measured it as, you got 127 million times more energy in that cup of water than there is in the Hiroshima nuclear bomb. And to access that, all we have to do is create half of that amount in positive antimatter, which you can create in the lab, and just release it. And that would do the job. But I don't think, as far as using that energy is probably the point, so much as the type of energy it's used and released at the time. But I suspect using a Tesla coil, obviously that energy is stored at the top of that, and that's essentially what is a capacitor, giant capacitor. And it's obviously released because it's extremely high voltage and sort of goes off and finds things to connect to essentially create a field whereby, I mean, that's the idea, isn't it? That you create a field where that energy goes off and finds a ground, finds a circuit. And my question really is, if you can do that on a well, basically, I think if that's possible. I mean, theoretically, if those circuits are being made and they're harmless, in theory, what's stopping you from creating a local area network of energy? For example, you plonk a Tesla coil somewhere, and then turn it on, and just, the details unknown, but ultimately the idea is you can walk past this Tesla coil within maybe 100 meters, maybe 200 meters, and essentially your phone will charge, or your electric car will charge as it's being used, that sort of thing. I guess that's really what I've been thinking about recently. What do you think?
This is Neal King. I would respond to two different questions. With regard to the question is why no one has created or been, well, with regard to why Tesla wasn't able to succeed in producing free energy for the world, I will just ask you to consider how businesses are actually done, and whether and who would give him the money to do that. actually? What would be the? I mean, people pay for things they want, and they don't usually want to give things away. You don't see, for example, who is the guy who um, the famous guy who's pushed the Tesla, the name Tesla electric car. He's not proposing to give them away for free. So why would you expect somebody to support Tesla to do that, regardless of what Tesla wants? He's got to get somebody to actually spend the money. So I think that's not very surprising. With regards to just the comment about um, the using the Einstein relation, E equals mc squared to produce power, that project's been going on since World War II, and it's called the fusion program. Right now it's still, everybody thinks it's another 25 years into the future. It seems like it's always been 25 years into the future because they keep running into problems. But it's quite possible that someday they will actually get it to work at a strong enough level. But so that's what they do. But that's uses a different, a couple of different approaches to um, producing, to reducing to getting the energy out of the mass, in effect, and releasing it. But the most likely technique is the fusion approach, which duplicates more or less the sort of thing that produces energy in the sun. That's my pause.
All right, cheers. Would it not be a good idea to, if it was possible to create free energy, then to actually create it? I mean, the idea would be then people would want to buy electric cars because you can drive them without having to charge them.
I didn't understand the question.
Also, I think you mentioned about the idea of giving away free energy if it was possible to make, and it wouldn't be, pointful. There would be a point to it because people wouldn't then want to pay for energy, and people want to get paid for energy. But I was wondering, as far as Tesla cars are concerned and electric cars are concerned, it'd be quite in their interests to have free energy, in the sense that if free energy was available, then you'd be able to drive along with electric car and not have to top up and refuel.
I'm
So
sure they'd
buying an
love it,
electric car would be quite beneficial.
well, I mean, what I'm asking you to do is think about the economics of the situation for a minute. I mean, don't. I mean, certainly physics is a different subject than economics, but a lot of what happens in the world has a lot to do with the way the economic pressures push or pull, and they're probably more determinative than the laws of physics most of the time.
Interesting. Okay. Well, would that not be then responsibility of physicists to push that out, maybe, and overrule the economists' desires?
Why do you think that the physicists would be able to get anything to change the economist's mind or change any big boss's mind? I mean, physicists are not. That isn't what they do.
Would they not? I mean, if a physicist figured out a way of creating free energy, would that not be something worth publicizing and actually making happen, like with a company?
Yeah, well, that's another issue. For the other thing is, I'm not at all convinced there's any there with regards to what people have talked about with regard it's Tesla's plans. But even I mean, so that's strike two. Strike or strike one would be, yeah, that maybe things are just not possible. I've never seen anything that clearly showing that it is. And secondly, as I said before, who would pay to have this done?
That'd be something worth asking, probably, I reckon.
What if we looked at the problem instead of free energy, looked at it as freeing energy?
And then,
Well, I mean, I'm working on a water tower power system, but I don't want to get into that. I want to talk about like the bowler hat sized generator turbine he invented that used boundary layers to spin up the disk turbines. I wonder if anyone's done an experiment with like CDs or DVDs trying to make a Tesla generator out of that. And I'm also wondering who's using Tesla valves and when they come about, because Tesla valves and the bowler hat generator, his turbulence boundary generator, are pretty interesting tech. And if you combine that with stuff like gravity feed, and then like Veritasium had published a video about running like running water through a sprinkler system and then through a screen, and then stripping electrons off the water and using like a bipolar phase. They're generating like 20,000 volt little releases of energy by stripping electrons, the positives off the negative and negative off the positive. If you added a capacitor to catch that charge, you could then take that charge from the capacitor to a battery pack. The batteries are getting better. There's just saw a paper today published about that dang uranium diamond battery that they're building. So I mean the tech's coming, and it's so hard to stay up to date. But I want to know more about Tesla and his Tesla valve and his turbulence boundary generator.
Well, I can just briefly cover the Tesla valve. Although, so just very quickly, usually valves. I'm working with valves right now. I'm making a liquid dispenser so that I could dispense the right amount of liquid at a time. And my valves are electronic, and they have a electromagnet. And I turn on the power, which turns on the electromagnet, which moves a physical piece out of the way so that the valve can open. A physical piece of metal. But the Tesla valve was a no moving parts valve, which worked largely as a leak-proof or low leakage one-directional valve. And because there's no moving parts, there's no need to replace it or worry about wear and tear because there's no chance of it getting worn out. And where is it used? It's used in partially used in places like feed systems for uh, like jet fuel, for example. If you wanted to mix very specific amounts of jet fuel at a rate which is fixed and not overdo the rate, this is one place where a Tesla valve might come in handy. But generally, anywhere where you're working with fluid dynamic systems, couldn't really say much more than that. But yeah, feel free. Anyone else jump in?
I thought Tesla valves would be a good use in a like water pump system where you have a water tower and use a Tesla valve. You could combat gravity and maybe make the water pump easier without.
I'm not sure I get the full picture, so I can't say either way. I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem. And then put these turbulence boundary generators in line with water tower systems in cities, and then the increased demand of water in the morning or throughout the day would be supplemented by a generator in line with the water tower to add supplemental energy into the system.
Question about this Tesla valve. If it has no moving parts, how do you change its state? from one way to the other.
I'm so sorry. Can you say that again?
Kinda. It's like
You say you've been saying
hard.
that the Tesla valve doesn't have no moving parts. If it has no
Yeah.
moving
The Tesla
parts,
valve has
how
no
do you
moving
how do
parts.
you flip it from one state to the other?
So you don't. It's just a one directional flow valve. You don't turn it on or off. It just prevents the flow in the other direction. So and it's always on
It's
basically.
passive. It's passive. Passive one-way valve.
But I suppose you could just close the front where the outlet, and then the valve would be closed. But that would require a moving part generally. But the
So,
mechanic.
well, I'm unclear. But the other issue is that even if it has no moving parts, erosion it wouldn't last forever because water erodes things too. You don't need moving parts to erode.
Yeah, that's true. But if you account for that, like use a sturdy material, get a much longer life, and there's no heat loss because there's no moving parts and no back EMF. So many non-lossy processes that have so many lossy processes that are avoided compared to electromechanical activation of a valve, like I'm doing right now in my product.
Well, I guess I don't have a clear conception of how it would work. If someone were to bring something like that in, that might be more helpful than speculation. I don't want to speculate wildly on things I haven't seen or had explained to me. So I don't have any clear idea what you would do with this thing. Yeah, actually, but
In the
but
meantime,
I'm quite sure. I am quite sure, however, that if that anything you can actually do will have to conserve energy in one way or another. So things
The way it
such as were
works is
suggested about
Neil.
would be problematic.
Neil, the way it works is that the way it's because it's using like offset half hearts when the water flows down because the half hearts it comes back around the bend uh and and puts positive pressure against the flow of the valve. So when the water flows down, it's being spun back around and redirected in the direction that you want it to flow. So
I didn't understand what you meant by half hearts.
okay, yeah, take a moment to look up Tesla valve on Wikipedia or anywhere, and you'll see what it is. It's so take a if you have like a straight pipe, and then you have a half heart coming off, and then you offset it, and you have another half heart on the opposite side. They're staggered, and what it does is it opposes the flow in the direction you don't want it to go by the pressure itself of the fluid back pressuring the system. So it causes the reverse flow to stall, though it's not perfect. I mean, you can get it to flow backwards, but it does combat it quite a bit. And then you have to worry about with water. You have to worry about cavitation. You have to worry about calcification or mineralization of the valve. So you would probably have to replace it, but it would function for a long time. And depending on the amount of flow that you're getting out of it, yeah, I mean, if you're trying to use it as a water hose, a fire hose, it may be too much flow for it. But if you're using it maybe as just a wind turbine water pump, like on a farm or something like that, to get the water to the top of the water cistern, then it may prove prudent because it's not as aggressive a flow.
I don't quite understand though how this. I mean, even if you have a preference to flow one way or the other, I don't think you're going to be able to make it fight gravity.
Well, in a sense, you can. I mean, you can make it fight gravity where it doesn't flow downward, to an extent if you have the flow going already. If the flow, like say if you're using a wind turbine and you're pumping it and the wind's going, it's going to pump fine, and it's not going to want to. You won't have the as much drag from say like a 30-foot pipe, trying to pump the 30 feet of water up a pipe. You'll have because the gravity itself will force the water to stay up. Now over time, that it will bleed. If the pump's not in action, it will bleed off the excess fluid, but to level. But it will still be, because it's acting as back pressure. You could combat some of the weight of the water just by using the weight of the water itself on itself. So you could have almost a suspended state where you're not really feeling, where your pump may not feel as much drag from the distance it's being pumped.
Well, either I mean, I'm sorry, but it sounds like we're another perpetual motion machine to me.
No, it's not
I
perpetual
think
motion
the more carefully
machine.
you analyze it, the more carefully things will balance out.
It's not perpetual motion machine. I'm just saying it's a what I'm trying to apply it to is to reduce, like if I'm working on a water tower power cistern, like stacked cistern system. So once the water gets to the bottom, I want to get it back up to the top for the water battery, right? But I don't want my windmill or my electric pump to have to work extra hard. So I was thinking like Tesla valves in line would reduce the amount of force that the water needs to flow in one direction because the water's suspending itself in a sense.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very convincing to me.
What you have to, you're unfamiliar with the Tesla valves to begin with, Neal, because you were asking a verbal description of it. You may want to take a moment to actually look at its construction so that you understand it. Now, the turbulence boundary generator is really interesting because it's a stacked disk generator that increases its speed as the water flows through the discs at a very, I'm not sure how close the discs are, but you're talking like maybe 100 microns or something like that, where the water where there's the boundary between laminar flow and turbulent flow, and that creates drag if it's close enough. The drag at the turbulence boundary between laminar and turbulent flow on the discs caused the disc to spin up. Now, I don't know all about it. I'd have to sit there and do a little more studying, but that's an interesting one because he was, if you research it, he was generating quite a power, very small stack. Other things we can look at to possibly propagate Tesla power is these cell towers. What experiments are we doing on cell towers for remote wiring? I know we're using 5G and 4G and 3G and all that other stuff to broadcast, but cell towers are becoming pretty common. There's a lot of towers in our lives, and if we can network those towers in some way, because the further up you go, how many volts do you gain for every like 10 feet or every atmosphere you go up or something like that? Every 10 or 15 feet, you gain voltage just in free air. And if you're insulated up to the top, you can actually draw the voltage straight down, collect the voltage. You can kind of see something similar to it from his home country in the old Orthodox church steeples. The metal steeples very much look like they are electrical conduit collector, and if they were collecting electricity from the top,
I think you kind of faded out.
Yeah, I don't know if it's only me, but I can't hear uh,
I can hear bleeps
I
and
Byron.
agree that I can't either.
I'm way out in the country.
Oh, you're back now.
I'm way out in the country if it was broken up. Sorry, guys. My signal's poor.
Yeah, we can hear you now if you want to continue.
Yeah, I'm not sure where y'all lost me or what information I left out.
Yeah, maybe we can just, look it up later because, as I said earlier, Hansen will have a room next week about Tesla, wherein he was able to find out more things about the works of Tesla. So the scientific and technical works of Tesla. So maybe we can have that discussion also as an addition to what Hansen will be preparing next week. Yeah, so in the meantime, Kuprik, who is here on stage, has been waiting for a long time and has not spoken yet. And maybe we would like to hear from Kuprik if you would like to unmic. Kuprik, are you there?
Maybe he's not available. I'd like to ask maybe if we can. I'd just like to invite everyone else if you have any questions, comments, anything you'd like to share. And otherwise, I'd like to ask that we wind up a little bit early today, in lieu of a previous engagement. But yeah, just happy to be here.
I would just like to ask you, Rishi, that, I think recently you have um, reviewed the biography of Tesla. How were you inspired? And can you tell us something about which part of his life or work has inspired you?
Well, I would say his ability to dream up of how these new technologies would be useful, and I really liked his demonstrations. There was a movie about him, or was it a documentary? But the one where he demonstrated AC alternators to his investors for the first time. Um, there's this very nice movie called The Prestige. It's one of my favorites. It talks about it's Hugh Jackman, the Wolverine, and Christian Bale, the Batman, and basically they're both magicians. And takes a starring role in that movie where he's this mad scientist who invents a teleportation device. And honestly, that movie is brilliant. But you would definitely believe if you knew anything about Tesla that if anyone could make a teleportation device, it's him. And I won't give away any more of the plot of that movie. You should watch it. It's fun. It's called The Prestige. But I think what's most inspiring about him is this mad scientist aura that he carried, more than Einstein or anyone else. Just like, you leave me in the lab and I will shoot humanity's technology forward another 100 years. Yeah, I think it was that mad scientist, and the fact that it was really consoling to hear that even though he was such a genius, he found it hard to fit into social situations, which really sort of makes you feel a little better if you're also uncomfortable with such things. But yeah, I think that's what really inspired me about Tesla. Of course, he had some really cool inventions. He didn't let realism stop him from dreaming big. So that was really cool. And so I really appreciate him.
Thank you so much, Rishi. Yeah, I would also like to share that, several years back, I was inspired by these Tesla coils in making music. So you would see that, later on, also Bjork tried to make music out of that and made some kind of performance. So a performance art with the Tesla coils, and yeah, that was really, fantastic for those people who were starting to introduce new music and avant-garde. And well, there are so many inventions of Tesla that he really did. He seems to be really like a manufacturing house of so many ideas, and for those which he had never released, we never know. We never knew what's going in his mind. And when his apartment, or it was his hotel, which burned later on, that really had put him into a big, huge debt, and it was so very difficult to recover. From that time, there were no records of the patents and the details that he made, and all works of those so many years gone when his lab was burned. So yeah, I think maybe in the future we would really know something more about Tesla. There's so much to talk about him in terms of the life that he did. What was he as some kind of a mad genius? And how was he as a child? In fact, he did not really perform so well in school, and he had to drop out, because he could not probably cope with the system, and also the consideration of their economic status during that time, and how he, as an inventor, also was not able to manage well in dealing with the businessmen who tried to take advantage of him, and how he was managing the total dynamics of the whole dimension of the many data that he possessed, those which were written and those in his brain. So yeah, I think that was very inspiring. However, what makes me feel so sad, it was that he died alone, and the prestige that came along with these inventions came in post mortem, and he was really bankrupt when he died. And that's really a lesson to consider our science or art, be consider it as a business, not to just make money, but to make it sustainable. So that's also my lesson, because what's happening in startups as well. There has to be a good plan, and there has to be someone who will be working on a startup in terms of trying to look at it as CFO, and in trying to raise funds, because usually when you have a startup nowadays, what happens is that the founder is also doing everything, that in the end he could not concentrate on making his idea work. So we should be looking trying to revisit the startup world as and look at the importance of having a good manager and also having a good CFO, because you see the founders having to do some bootstraps, and so of course just a very few startups succeed. But it's very inspiring, if we are able to manage that well, because it gives a great opportunity for everyone. It's a good leverer for everyone. So yeah, that's what I just learned from Tesla. And anyway, I don't know if Kuprik is already available, and Panther and Aaron. Yeah, if you would like to speak up, maybe you have like to share in the room.
Well, I have a question. This isn't necessarily Nikola Tesla, but it has to do with free energy. And hopefully, someone in this room has heard of this. This actually hit the local news in Tampa, Florida, about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer. There's an inventor who was taking salt water and somehow breaking it down and making free energy out of it. They covered this on the news, talked to the guy. Um, he, he had some operation going on in his garage, actually. And I think uh, he actually demonstrated that it worked, but he was trying to get it to the point where this is some type of product he could sell, I guess, or something. So I wonder if you guys have heard anything about that, because I've been trying to track down original news stories and I can't find it. Thank you.
Well, I think there was someone in Facebook because I maintain a huge community in Facebook about quantum mechanics and theoretical physics and also tech communities. There was someone from Florida who was trying to tag me, but when I tried to look at the paper that he has, there is no study about this free energy. And talking to a lot of physics people, because it's not only in Florida, there were other communities or inventors who tried to get in touch with us actually for investment and using this particular kind of concept. And in the end, it is a hoax so far. But I don't know if we are referring to the same person. So, but if we are, then I'm not sure if he's really talking science. On the other hand, I would like to see any paper or study that is made about this, so that we would be able to comment on that on this free energy from salt water. But I don't know if anyone in the room has heard about this as well. So yeah, if you have, please feel free to comment. Well, if you have a name, I just want to say maybe you could follow up and ask him if he has any newspaper articles or anything in the local news done on him, because this person certainly did. Like I said, it's been over 10 years. He could be deceased at this point. I don't know. So yeah, that's all I have. Thanks. I don't really remember his name. So yeah, but if it's just about newspaper articles, there's a lot of sensationalism that's being done in the news, and of course, as vanguards of fake news, and that's why we're trying to promote here in quantum photonics. We discourage fake news, so we would like to take a closer look at his claims, because if he did, he could be very rich by now. Because when you say free energy from something which is there, we have to consider that it's not only just like free energy. You need to have a particular system. For instance, you need to have infrastructure in order to set that up so that it will be free. You need people to manage that, in order that it will be disseminated to other people so that they can avail of that. You need some investment to really be able to control that and see to it that it's done very well. So, um, yeah, there are sub issues, just like what Neal said earlier. It could be free, but you need infrastructure and management to set that up. So I will check if he is who he is, but I can't remember as of now. I will just add this: it's not just a newspaper article. They actually did a news spot with video, and I saw the video. And they went in and interviewed the man and showed the equipment setup and all of that. And he was demonstrating it. Something I couldn't quite understand what was happening there, but you know, it looked like he's legit. Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. But for now, I have no comment on that. Yeah, we will just check. Thanks. So anyway, Rishi or Neil, would you have a comment? Thank you, Panther. Yeah, we will just check. If not, if there's no comment, we would like to go to Aaron.
Well, I guess I can comment that it's always easier to look legit than to be legit. And then the other issue, of course, is that if someone were able to essentially produce free energy, I think there would be a lot of people that would be interested. And if he's disappeared, then I think there may be a good reason for him to be not to be so visible, because it's just like generating money. It's better than generating money. So um, I think a little bit of skepticism or doubt is in order in this situation.
Okay, so I don't know if Aaron would like to unmic. If not, there is Lex who just came up on stage.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, do you think someone who could invent free energy, do you think that they would be safe? Like, I don't know that they would be safe be, for the disruption that that would cause to the infrastructure that we have in place. That kind of innovation would be too disruptive to the economy, to the world economy, I think, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it just destabilize? How many countries depend on energy for their like substantial parts of their GDP? So someone creating, I don't know how you would even monetize free energy. You said someone who creates free energy would be wealthy. How would they be wealthy? Like, can you explain that?
Well, you could get investors to provide some sort of for an unknown technology, which people are so often willing to pay for, and just produce your free electricity, for example, and sell it to other electrical companies. Just sell it. Just say I produce this by technology X, which you don't have to specify. But if you produce the power and they get it and they use it and they pay the bills, and it's not really costing you, and if in reality it's not costing you anything, then you're getting 50% of that goes straight to your
So
pocket.
so now you're saying that they'd have to keep it safe for business purposes, which
You know,
kind
you,
of
just to,
countermands the whole
just to,
idea of
just as a
talking about free energy. They're
yeah,
just
but just
another corporation now.
yeah, just say I'm selling power. Here it is.
You just license your patents or whatever.
Well,
If
no,
you
you don't.
patent free
I wouldn't do
energy,
that.
you're a fool.
You got to build the
You're a
infrastructure.
fool.
You got to build
You
the
If
don't need.
you
You don't need.
infrastructure.
patent
Stick to the
You
free
don't need
grid.
energy,
patents.
if you put the
You don't need
key and the
patents.
secret, if you
You
put the
don't need
secret to
patents.
free energy in a patent, you're, I'm
The
sorry, I
Coca.
don't mean to call you anyone a fool. I take that back. I
You're
don't
more
want to
than
call
welcome
anybody a
to.
fool.
You're more than welcome
Well,
to. Many people
Lex, they
do.
I
might be
cannot
selling
believe
home
though that you would
units.
just, well,
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 it's like
well, well
Tesla.
here's the
Look at all his
dilemma now.
patents. He gave his stuff away. Was he a fool? We were talking about that.
So some would say, didn't he die penniless?
Well, yeah, he died in his
Some would
apartment
say
He
and they
was
some
stole.
horribly
some some
taken
would say
advantage
so
of.
I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it. I'm just wish that his information could have been given freely, could have changed humanity, but but it wasn't.
It
And it
did.
didn't,
The
you know.
AC generator, Niagara Falls.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean,
Yeah, I do yeah,
the
yeah.
power
I'm
of
talking
our
about the stuff he
houses.
did at the end of his career. Oh yeah, please. I'm not saying he didn't have an impact. If that's what it came across, I apologize. I'm not saying he didn't have an impact. But what I am saying is that at the end of his career, some of the things that I think he learned.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff disappeared at his death when they emptied his apartment.
I have to say, sometimes you're only meant to know what you know and not what someone else has learned by their means. So it's like you actually have to do all of the necessary thought processes that get you to an understanding, to have a real, um, complete understanding. So I feel like it's kind of a cheat to just be like, oh, well, here's this information on how everything works. And then not have done not actually put the effort into really tangibly understanding the concepts for yourself.
Do you think that was the secret behind his genius? Like studious, unrelenting, disciplined study, or did he have something maybe we don't have? People like
His
that are an exception.
autobiography, his
Like you
autobiography is
can't.
really interesting. His
Yeah, but
autobiography
you
is
can't
really.
you can't say that you can't say stuff like that about people like that. People like him, like Einstein, there is no do the push-ups to become Batman in that regard. Like those people are special. So lamenting and coveting what they discovered
No,
i-
that's
is
not what I'm
is
saying.
is not okay.
You are misunderstanding. what I'm saying. I'm not talking about push-ups. I'm talking about
That
expanding
was an
your,
allegory. That
hold
was an
on,
allegory.
hold on. I'm talking about actually personally expanding your concept of everything around you and how things work together and cooperate and actually functionably connect, because that is the essence that he was able to realize. And when he explained it, no one understood, because they didn't do that work. That is internal processing, which basically means you have to strip down the structured all of the structures that have been built before you, everything that you have been told, and you have to go against it to see what there really is out there to know. So
And
so
if we do
tearing
that, we
down,
can gain his
hold on,
perspective,
hold on,
Nikola Tesla's perspective.
hold on.
Have you read his book? Have you read his autobiography where he describes his
I
thinking
love how
process?
you guys are running all over what I'm saying, which is a very passionate
No, Carla, I like what
moment
you're
for
I'm
me
not.
right
saying.
I
now.
I
actually
agree with you.
respect it. I
Okay,
actually
if you guys want
respect
to
it.
keep
Like,
talking, I'm going to stop talking. But I'm trying to actually convey a message to you, which is that sure, he was special, but there is no limit to the expanse of your understanding if you actually tear down the essence of your ego and allow yourself to see things in a different way. um, that is going to be the difference between your basic ass understanding and expanding your fucking understanding. So you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's all I got to say. But listen, don't be painting me into a corner and putting words in my mouth. Thank you.
Hi, Cecil. This is Amy.
I'm sorry, I was taking you seriously.
Hi.
That was my fault. My bad.
I'm actually working on an alternative energy sustainability green project, and they do use seawater, but it's not free. It's a B2B project at this point, and I might shoot you the paper on that, and probably because we're in the seed round phase of our project right now, and you might be interested in it. It's building a hydrogen cell, uh, which is coming from seawater. So I'll shoot you the papers soon. Thank you, Cecil.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy. Yeah, it's good to know about that. I've read some other studies, but it wasn't like the study of that guy in Florida anyway. So I think there must be a system that's being used. So I would be very interested to read the paper that you have. And anyway, what's very assuring is that there is a business model because it should be sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much in place already. We just need funding on our capital stack.
Thank you. Yes. So anyway, Carla was talking earlier, and there were people trying to comment. If these people would like to comment further, you are free. Also, otherwise, Rishi, if you'd like to add, or Neil, or anybody else would like to come up on stage and um, comment or have questions about Tesla, because this is a free discussion today that we have. This is a follow-up room, part two of the Tesla room that we had last week, because at that time there were four of us prepared to do a divulgation about Tesla. It was me, Rishi, Hansen, and MJ. And looking at Tesla at different perspectives. However, we have so much to say about Tesla. He had so many inventions which are very relevant to our life nowadays, and yeah, he has more inventions that we haven't exploited well yet for our benefit. So we decided to have a part two of this room, and as I announced earlier, we will have a part three, because on the course of the discussions that we had on the part one, Hansen was able to make some research and some discoveries about the history and some technology that Tesla introduced. So yeah, that's why anyway, Rishi was here to um, try to tell us his part that he was prepared for in the part one of the room. So now we are just having a free discussion for everyone who would like to comment, ask questions, or yeah, just say something about Nikola Tesla. This was a popular request by our audience. This is why we had a part two. So anyway, some technical questions or others will be addressed in concentration of the room of Hansen next week.
Amy, this is Panther. I followed you and I'd appreciate looking at that paper also if you'd like to send it my way.
It's pretty much for investors right now. I'm sorry, but maybe when it goes public, I'll let you know.
Okay, very good.
This conversation has some interesting parallels to one we were having in another room where I was talking about art for hire per se being a form of exploitation if it didn't include the residuals that Web3 is sort of known for. And I think exploitation was a theme in Tesla's life. And I just imagine, what if Tesla could have gotten his hands on some people that could have fought off people like Edison, and kept them from like vulturing on his particular genius and his particular creativity, you know. And so much of his invention and his life like resides in apocrypha. Um, it's just so interesting. What if he could have had someone, that would have protected him from the raw, naked. Uh, I don't want to say capitalism, but I guess it's that ambition of other men. Let's put it that way. And I wonder what if anything can we do to capitalize on the technology that exists now to maybe play that kind of middleman? Is there any way to protect some of these genius people that we have now, without having to turn them into shrewd predatory businessmen that fight off the other business interests that are trying to subdue them? Like, what can we do to protect our geniuses?
Would the answer to that be publishing the information so it's free for all to know? So when that information is come out, it's published as much widely as possible.
Yeah, but we already established earlier that publishing the notion, for instance, of free energy, say that breakthrough occurs, you publish that information and now it's disseminated and becomes, global parity. Everybody has it now. You know, it, again, one, you can't capitalize off of that. Not saying that you even should. I mean, something like that could unshackle the world and unshackle all the creativity that's chained to starvation, and desolation. You know, yeah, something like that should be introduced to
Tip them.
humanity because it might. Go ahead.
Tip them. Say, thanks for the service. Here's a tip.
I love that you think like that. I wish more people did.
I didn't get
He said, tip them, send them a tip.
it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if free energy from salt water is possible, then I think sticking a few electrodes in the sea and plugging it into the mains probably wouldn't be a bad way to go.
Oh, you can do a lot with salt water, man. I mean, if you started taking if you started printing sand with like solar parabolic mirrors or whatever, like some people have done, you can sit there and make huge uh sandcastles that can filter the water, separate it, and everything, and you just have a continuous printing cycle and then move on. And you had that may
You
be an
talking about
interesting
3D
way to make 3D
3D printing
printing
filtration?
safe. Yeah,
Filtrate.
3D printing, filtration, and desalinization of sandcastles.
That's very interesting.
Agreed.
Well, they have saltwater batteries, so I think that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I've
They're
heard
also
something
making
about that.
sugar batteries now that are more stable than the lithium batteries. Those are just published. There's the diamond uranium battery they're trying to get traction on. Japan just released a new battery type. It's like a solid state battery. Here, hold on,
Your audio,
Oh no.
Matrix.
your audio
Oh
keeps going
no.
out.
Come back to us, bro. He was preaching.
I'm about 20 miles out in the country. I don't have a radio tower near me. Um, where was I at?
Japan.
Japan just released a solid state battery, and then if you're looking at these diamond uranium batteries, that has potential. Especially, I've talked to some other people about what you could do with that type of cell. I've alluded to it some in here. Anyway, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of what we're not doing in the sciences, and I think we were talking about it yesterday. Is we're not putting our keystones in the right places to bridge the knowledge between various forms of observation and invention. So it's kind of like building a cathedral. You know, as the knowledge, we noticed that as the knowledge all comes together to the peak, you have to have that keystone in there to hold up all the arches in the right place, or the structure collapses. And right now, I don't think there's enough effort, though AI is doing it, to sit there and find those keystone uh, spanners that bridge those gaps and stabilize different fields and fields of study and fields of physics. And but because it's a bit like trying to put keystones on a thought balloon map.
Yeah, so yeah, who else? I think somebody came up on stage, but I could not see whoever that is. So maybe if there aren't so much comments here, we will be wrapping up soon. Yeah, as you see, well, I see Metayin trying to raise her hand, his or her hand. Rishi did not have any sleep at all, I think, for 2 nights. And yeah, we will be wrapping up soon, but not yet because there are still people coming up on stage. And I would like to welcome Meta. Yeah, Meta, welcome to Quantum Photonics. Yeah, if you'd like to speak, please unmic.
Hey, what's going on? Peace to the room. Yeah, I'm mad I got here to the conversation pretty late. I wanted to know what you guys' opinion was or opinion is on Nikola Tesla's radiant energy. I know he used impulse energy and he had a lot of different types of energy, but I wanted to know what you guys thought about the radiant energy.
Rishi and Neil, any comment?
Can you, sorry, can you just
Nothing
say that
on
again,
nothing
please?
nothing on radiant energy. I haven't heard of that before. I did have a comment on the Tesla valve that I went looked up a few minutes ago. If anybody was to hear about that.
Yeah, I'm game. You said the
Okay,
Tesla valve?
the Tesla valve. Yeah, I just looked it up on Wikipedia. It was the easiest thing to find. Basically, it says that it's a design of pipe that such that the it flows one way much more easily than the other. maybe depending on what the claims are, either a factor of 4 or a factor of 20, or Tesla claimed a factor of 200. But anyway, if the pipe water flows one way more easily than the other. Basically, it's the point, which is interesting. But I don't see any miracles coming out of that.
I can see efficiency coming out of that. We need to work on efficiency.
Efficiency of what?
Power generation. Right now, most of our power is generated by steam.
Well, I guess it will make more sense if you propose a design which actually produces power, and then we could see what it does to it.
That's what I'm
Just
working on, but I'm poor with my draftsmanship skills. Carried in my
well,
head.
I'm
I
poor on
carried
my
in my head like
imagination skills.
Tesla.
Well, anyways, as much until I see something, I don't see anything in the description that gives me any particular hope that interesting violations of the conservation of energy come out of it. So until I see
No,
something that's more definite,
I
I'm not
don't think
They
really
that.
too excited.
I don't think that's there, Neal. I don't think that's there. I agree with you. What I think is there though is if it's 220 times or 4 times more efficient to pump water up the hill to a water reservoir because you're inducing drag in the opposite direction. Then by inducing drag in the opposite direction, you're actually making the water flow uphill easier. And if you're doing this on a large scale, say like, some of these water battery power plants, turbines, the ones that spin the turbines, and they pump the water up with the excess power during the day, and or whenever, and they drop it down at night. If you have a way to make it easier to get that water uphill so that you can get that gravity force to turn the turbines, yeah, I mean, you're improving in one area almost, 4 times, a multiple of 4, the ability to get that water up, or the
Okay,
ability to keep that water from falling down.
you're missing a point though. See, the thing is that because even though direction 1 is 20 times more easy than direction 2, direction 2 is probably still harder than just a straight pipe. You can beat both of them easily with a straight pipe.
Can you?
That's not the sentence. Well, that's not necessarily true. And if he's talking efficiency in terms of power needed, if the pipe is the infrastructure that facilitates the movement of the water uphill, that reduces the power needed to move that water. That's what he means by efficiency,
Yeah,
right?
but I don't. But looking at what's written about what's claimed for the actual concept under discussion, I don't see anything like that there. It looks to me like
That's
they're
because it
basically
hasn't really been explored. If you looked at it, if you modeled it and simulated it and say, gave it a generative, and allowed it for maybe optimized vectorization, you may be able to make some type of cast highly efficient, because no one's really explored it. So you may be able to make a cast highly efficient, let's say, yin yang pipe that just goes one direction real easily and doesn't go the other direction. So if the water's resisting flow in one direction, say downhill the second direction, if it just doesn't want to flow downhill because it's pushing on itself when it starts falling downhill through gravity, then you're going to have you're going to have a way easier time getting it to your water battery source.
Are we talking about water flow
that
that
that that
occurs
really doesn't
inside the
follow.
same interior of the same pipe?
That really doesn't
Yes.
follow. Uh, I mean, basically, I've I've read the descriptions and what the claims are for it, and I'm satisfied that there's nothing there useful. If you think that you can that better design and test and so forth would produce a better result, feel free, bring it in. But
Yeah.
I'm convinced that I'd seen enough of it
Okie
to
doke.
give an
Okie doke.
opinion.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
That's the funny thing about inspiration, though, right? All it takes is a unique perspective. You know, maybe we don't have that perspective. Maybe it doesn't belong to anyone in this generation. But the notion of that being possible inside of one pipe might lead to some great discovery. We don't know that, you know? We just don't know. So the point is to make these kinds of discoveries available to as many people as possible. But how do you do that in a world inundated with the data hose that pours information down our gullets every day? Like how do we make these kind of things readily available to people who would take advantage of
Well,
That's what
let
we're
me
doing here, Lex.
you're
I'd like to
saying it's
propose an
useless,
object
but
lesson.
I mean,
I would like
who's
to
to
propose
say
an
that?
object
He
lesson.
just has healthy
Um,
skepticism as a scientist.
Fair enough.
well, I will give you a specific case in point. How many people have heard of the EM drive or M drive?
In passing,
Anybody?
I've heard of it in passing. I couldn't tell you what it is now.
Okay, well, I looked at it about 10 years ago, I guess, because I think it got on the scene about 10 years ago. The a British engineer proposed a design to the equivalent of NASA in England that would basically produce claim to produce thrust from RF energy that would be produced within a capsule, a transportable capsule, let's say a space car, okay, just a space car, but for which the radiant energy would not escape. It was just supposed to bounce around inside the container and impart momentum to the car in one direction. He wrote it up, about 10 pages of description, gave it to the British government, and he convinced them to give him £100,000, I think, or £200,000 to develop it. He produced a little bit more noise, but nothing really very convincing. But he still sold. Somehow, somebody over at NASA got interested in it, and I don't know if they gave him money, but they set up a project. They worked for a couple of years trying to get it to work, and they produced they claimed to produce some thrust of that nature, but it was very strange because the thrust was orders and orders and orders of magnitude below what they had claimed, and also it was in the wrong direction in some cases. So basically, the output was noise. Nonetheless, it was still getting more and more press and popularity in the popular science magazines like Popular Mechanics and so forth. And later on, there was a Chinese team of physicists that claimed that they had they were going to work on a reproduction of it. There was somebody who produced a quantum version of the theory because to counter the claim that this was based on just classical physics. And this is sort of never-ending story of things that people claimed they would produce and so forth. Now, about 8 years or 2 years into that, I guess, at the beginning of, not very far from the beginning, I thought, well, this seems like a very unlikely possibility, meaning that it was batshit crazy, basically. But I thought, look, the paper is not very long. I'll try to read it, and I'll see if I can get anything out of it. I had a little bit of free time, and I don't do physics professionally anymore, so I just thought I'll try it for fun. And I gave myself a budget of 2 days. That if I couldn't figure it out what was wrong with it in 2 days, I wouldn't worry about it anymore. Or I wouldn't, I wouldn't, I would just drop it at that point. But actually, I sat down, get prepared to give it 2 days, and in about 15 minutes, I came across the first total crazy error, which was basically that the person who had written this result up had forgotten how to do vector addition. And so when he calculated the thrust and calculated the back thrust, he lost a factor of 2 between them, and that was where his factor that was where his claimed thrust was coming from. It was coming from the fact that he couldn't remember how to do vector addition, which is something he should have been flunked in high school physics for not being able to do. As soon as I saw this, I thought, this is crazy. Somebody else must have noticed this. So I did a literature search, under his name and the M drive and vector addition, just to see what happened. And sure enough, at that point I found a paper that somebody had written early, even before, very, very, very carefully and explicitly explaining exactly that same factor of 2 from the same vector addition. So this went on. So I couldn't believe it, because this project had been given 100, on the basis of this paper that I looked at, had been given $100,000 by the £100,000 by the British government. Had started a project that went on for 2 years in NASA, and started a Chinese team of physicists to claiming they would. It's inspired somebody to try to produce a quantum theory to what was a completely flawed and ridiculous classical theory, and inspired a bunch of Chinese physicists to try to reproduce the thing. And apparently, I guess none of them ever thought to read the fucking paper, because, as I said, it only took me, a non-professor at this point, to 15 minutes, 10 minutes to understand that it was totally wrong, completely impossibly wrong. So this is not a not very happy experience with um, extreme design.
John, your
Thank you.
audio is really scratchy.
There's a hot mic.
John, you may have to go. You may have to go out and come back in, bro.
No, we're not hearing you. It's very scratchy noise.
Try to leave and come back.
Some of these VPNs really mess with the audio.
Yeah, so anyway, we will wrap up the room soon, and while we're waiting if John comes back, I would just like to announce the coming rooms that we will have. So there is no scheduled room for tomorrow evening, but Kay is planning to do a room, and maybe I will encourage him to make a room about, ask me anything about waves. So that should also cover the question of Carla, if he is able to make that room, because it covers different ways wherein we are able to manifest light through electromagnetism to these vibrations. And yeah, I hope he will be able to make it, because our guest will be coming in the morning of the next day. We have many guests from the European Union in these coming weeks, and so that's why I'm not so sure if we could hold a monthly, a daily, nightly room here on that schedule, because most of the scientists are coming on that schedule. So please check out the schedules that we have on the quantum photonics page here in Clubhouse. And the one which we have about 6 rooms coming up until the Sunday evening. And the next room, aside from K, which will be in the morning the next day, is about how life came to Earth. We have a guest speaker, a scientist from Europe. He will talk about the quantum mechanical tunneling effect, which might play a role, and his research team from Max Planck Institute for Astronomy is going to talk about possible extraterrestrial origins of peptides. And on that night, after, we will have a long COVID researcher who will talk about the many researches that they had so far about long COVID and its treatment since the inception of the pandemic. Of course, we know that there are still a lot of things that we do not know about COVID, and especially about long COVID. So he will be speaking about that. And on the night after, we have Dr. Janelle from Waterloo University, who is a pedagogist in mathematics, and she will be talking about her method of mathematical pedagogy on how to make it effective. And later on, we will have a speaker who is specializing in uncertainty theory. He will be combining math and also data science and AI to talk about this and its applications. And after that, we will have the room of K again, which is talking about basic concepts in physics. So we have about 5 or 6 rooms coming up until the end of the week, until Sunday evening. So yeah, that's my announcement for now. And so we go back to our room. And I would just like to announce that we will be wrapping up soon. However, we will give an opportunity to those who came on stage and who weren't able to speak yet to speak, ask questions, make comments. Yes, so thanks. So the last one who was speaking was John, if I'm correct in my PTR order. Yeah, so I hope your mic is okay now, John. And after that, we will have Dale.
Is my mic okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you well. Thank you.
So, so much better.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the original guy did make an error on the factor of two with that. You're totally right. Those guys are engineers. They're not theorists. Um, they made a lot of mistakes. And Woodward was the guy who is working on the alternative using the plates. So uh, as far as the M drive goes, they did. There was like a lot of thermal uh, noise coming off of it. It was getting really hot, and spent a long time talking with everybody who was involved with that project. I haven't talked to Woodward, but I've talked to some of Woodward's people, and um, is what I am convinced is that there is thrust, but it is not going in a controllable direction. And the Chinese actually, and first of all, I did want to add, you said they gave him all of this money and everything. First of all, he built it in his garage with his money, and a whole bunch of other people have done a whole bunch of experiments uh, with their own money involved with it. And they did give him and another woman about 2 years at EagleWorks in a very small space. And the guy who countered his experiments did not follow a lot of things that were presented that he should have done it. And it seemed as if this guy who was replicating his stuff for NASA was purposely being a bit stubborn in not changing what it was, because it seemed he wanted negative results. And the Navy has invested money in it as well, and another guy in the Navy is working on it. So there is thrust. It is very, very small, and it is not in a unified direction, and it is going all over the place. The Chinese did replicate it, and they actually made a small pancake, not in the bell housing shape. They made a pancake, and they actually took it up into space and got thrust off of it, but it flopped and turned in every single direction. So they do not know how to control the directional thrust of it, and it is very small. And he did make a lot of errors, and it's totally understandable for looking at it all as quack pottery, but there is something there, and everybody looks at it for 15 minutes and says crackpot and walks away. And it's sad because there is something there. That's all I have to say about it. Sorry I spoke so long, but that's all. Thank you very much.
No comment.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, well, Rishi had already stepped out because he hasn't slept for 2 nights already. So, I don't know if Neil has some comment or I cannot hear
That was
you.
my comment. No comment. No further comment
All right,
for me.
maybe another topic for discussion in the future. So, yes, I said we're going to wrap up soon, and so I give the mic to Dale.
Hello, my name is Dale, and I come from the supporting the Navy, and that support was in areas of S&T, R&D, advanced technology, incorporating future technology and clawing it back into present day issues. And so I have very often been the person sitting in front of a person who has 10 minutes to present their idea, to get funding, to somehow meet needs I have that are unmet or future capabilities that I can get into a system faster. And so that's my perspective on this. And what I would offer to the distinguished panel and the listeners is simply to not be silent, to simply not be silent. Because from the resourcing organization, what happens is you have so little, you have so many different projects and things that are presented to you, and so little time to dig deep into them, right? So I was an embedded support guy, and my job, one of many, was to dig deep. And what I would say to you is, if you are on the technical side, the science side, the theoretical side, and somehow this is a part of your um, area that you deal with, please speak up. Talk to the people who are making the funding decisions. Talk to the people and make sure that they have all aspects of the information you have. Your expertise is really valuable. Now, the person you're speaking to might be a theoretical physicist, they could be a person with no science background at all, because the government, for some odd reason, puts people in charge of very technical things that don't understand technology. And that's just a fact. That's not always the case, but it is sometimes the case. So think of that in terms of um, just being not afraid to speak. And this is Dale, and thank you for letting me speak. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dale. Yeah, thank you for sharing and for supporting the room. As I said earlier, we're going to wrap up soon. But I saw Alex raising his hand. He helped us really lead the moderation yesterday, but I could not see him on stage. So there must be a problem to bring him on stage now. So yeah, yeah. Anyway, we would like to wrap up soon to prepare for the next room that we have. So Alex, I don't know if you're there and I can just see you. Yeah, if not, I would like to thank everyone for their participation today. Neil, dear Carla, Kuprik, Byron, Panther, and Amy, Meta, John, yeah, Dale, and everyone who's in the audience. And yeah, we will see you tomorrow. And now I give the mic to Darcel to close the room.
Hey, could I ask one quick question before you go, Cecile? Because I'm not sure I can get to you in back channel. Do you have time for one quick question?
Yeah, thank you.
I'll be brief. So my question is, if I wanted to connect you to another person who's working on climate change issues, but they lack the ability to incorporate things at scale. So they have the theoretical ideas of scale at cosmic and quantum. They don't have the science to put those together. They have the idea of data, but not the science to do AI or machine learning. Um, is it possible to connect you to someone like that, or is that out of scope? I don't want to bother you or drive the room down, but just a quick question. This is Dale. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, it really depends upon the idea that they have. because of course right now my plate is so full, but yeah, sometimes I also help people, but I have to know to what extent is their idea. So it may be a bit paradoxical. So, but let's see. If they need someone from AI, because everybody believes that his idea has, just like yesterday we had the room about the usefulness of useless knowledge. We just don't know where good ideas come from. So yeah, let's see. So even those people who already have who are on a certain stage, a certain round stage, they try to also connect. So sometimes I try to help, but sometimes I don't if I'm too busy. So let's see. So
Understood. I'll
thanks.
summarize and send to you. I will also say thank you so much. You run the most amazing set of rooms. It's just mind blowing. Your energy and the people you have that contribute. I'm just really impressed and grateful to be able to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. We're trying our best to improve every day. We have a lot to learn. So we thank everyone for their support, because we can only get better because of the support of everybody. So yeah, with that, I may not on Wednesday, and Hansen will be the main person who will be handling this discussion. And yeah, if there are questions before that, it's okay also, so that we can look it up and guide the discussions better. So thank you so much, everyone, for your participation in the room. And Mike, to you, Darcel, thanks.
Thanks, Cecile. Thanks for a great room. As always, I learned a lot. All right. Well, we're going to start our countdown with lucky number 9. Is everybody ready?
You ready?
Ready?
9!
Nine.
Nueve.
9,
88!
88,
88.
808.
Meta 7!
7.
7 7.
Siete.
Pito.
Route 66!
Route 66. I'm not coming.
Siete de seis.
5!
Cinq,
5.
Cinco.
Cinco.
4400!
Oh, you
4.
got me.
4400
33 and a third!
3.
records.
33 un
33
tres.
点1/3。
Dos Equis!
No te
2.
I'll
saques por
have
mí.
one, please, with
Me.
lime.
Copy that. Cecile, you are number 1. Call it out.
Woot woot.
1.
Yes.
Yeah, good night,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
everybody. Good night.
Cecile,
Good
Cecile,
night.
Good
Good
Cecile.
night.
night, Cecil. Good
Good
night to the
night.
room. Great room
Yes.
tonight.
Have
Yeah.
good dreams,
Have sweet
everyone.
dreams, everybody. Bye.